Well, hey, y'all. Welcome you to Ordinary Women, Extraordinary God on video. And we are blessed to be part of the Love We're Finding family. And our passion is to encourage you to laugh without fear of the future. And we're just having candid conversations. I've got my water. Lisa, I think I saw you with some coffee or water. Get your tea and come just join us for a conversation. We're just talking about, we're ordinary women and we're talking about our extraordinary God. And so welcome. This is Lisa Limehouse. We're friends on social media and we've Zoomed before. And we're so glad you're with us today. Lisa, thank you for joining us.
Oh, honey, thank you for having me. It's such a blessing to be here.
It's going to be so much fun. And we've kind of gotten to know each other. We follow each other on Instagram and we've had some conversations too. And I just thought Lisa's story would be a blessing to you. She's encouraged me and I love the redemption and the forgiveness and the things that she's lived through. And so I feel like you may absolutely be able to relate to what she's lived through. And so this is going to be good today. And thank you for your willingness to share.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, tell us who you are. Introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about you.
Well, let me just first say, I just absolutely adore you. And it is such an honor to be here with you. So thank you again. I love to introduce myself this way. So first off, I'm a child of God. I'm a woman of faith, fearfully and wonderfully made. My identity is not in what I do. It's not in what's been done to me. It's not based on my circumstances. And it's certainly not what people think about me. My identity is Christ alone. And the reason why I do that is because everywhere I go and speaking to women, I find that we automatically introduce ourselves by what we do. And so I started changing that a while ago. God just really talked to me about that and said, you need to have your identity in me. So that's the first way I introduce myself, but that's my core. But let me just say a few other things about me. So I'm a curly girl, as you can see. I'm a Southern girl. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. I'm a wife, mom, two beautiful girls, two amazing son-in-laws that literally were dropped from heaven. And I'm a Gigi of 5 amazing grandchildren from the ages of 21 all the way to 6. That's so hard to believe. I still have to go, what? When did that happen?
Yes.
And then I have a fur baby. Her name is Kiva.
Oh, wow. Wow. I didn't know all that. I had no idea you had that many grandchildren. You look good, girl.
You're so sweet.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where you literally go, where did time go?
Yes.
I just was changing his diaper.
I used to be 20. Yes, I know. It went like that. Yes, yeah. I get you. And I love how you introduced yourself. I think that's wonderful. I may have to get that from you. Start using it because that's good. That's really good. And we may share that. We can leave comments below. And so we may share that because I think that would be a wonderful thing for women to start saying to themselves every day. That's a good word.
I just spoke at an American Business Women's Conference 2 weeks ago. And when I introduced myself, that's how I introduced myself. And the women just were like, they didn't know what to think. And I started just letting them know that we get lost in what we do instead of who we really are. And we need to come back to that identity in Christ.
Yeah. Makes me think of the words to that song, Jireh. Maybe you've heard it and it says, I'm already loved. I'm already chosen. I know who I am. I mean, it's very freeing when you start realizing how loved you are and resting in that. And I hear you saying that we need to rest in whose we are and in how much God loves us and accepts us and not anything else. So that's a great way to start. Good word. You're great at the intro.
Check.
Yeah. Hey, check. We got that one. That'll preach. Well, let me ask you what our theme is. We're ordinary women and we are pursuing an extraordinary God. We're just regular girls who love Jesus. So how are you a regular girl, one of the girls?
For me, like I said, I'm just your typical wife, mom, right? But for me, I look at it as an ordinary woman who's been through very high highs in life. I've been through very, very deep, deep lows in life. I've experienced trauma. I've experienced betrayal. I've experienced loss. But in all of that, God has shown his glory in and through my life. in extraordinary ways. I live my life every day, serving people, seeking God, loving my family. And at the end of the day, I might wear many hats, but I'm just a woman of God, just an ordinary.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can relate. We do have seasons and highs and lows, don't we? And it's part of life. Life is not all up and it's not all down, thank goodness. And so,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, let me ask you, how has God been extraordinary to you? You probably could name a ton of ways, but is there one thing in particular when I shared that question with you, you're like, I want to share this. God has been extraordinary in this way.
For me personally, the very first thing that always, when people ask, how has God been just miraculous in my life? The very first thing is that he chose me, that he saved me. When I look at myself in the mirror and I see that reflection back, I recognize what God has done in my life. He saved me. And that in and of itself is huge, because for me, I was that heathen at one time, right?
Yeah.
I was that woman who was at the well. I relate to that story tremendously. I was the one who was the outcast and, who was living a life that was just full of sin and selfishness and it's all about me. And then God radically got a hold of me and changed my life. So for me, there was a point in my life where I was actually the betrayer when I was 25. And that was BC, that was before Christ, right? And then through that, God radically got a hold of my life and changed me. So that's the very first thing that comes to my mind when I want to really tell people, what God has done in my life. But the other thing recently is that I've also been through betrayal myself. And I have been through not just the trauma of the betrayal, and have seen what God has done personally in my own life, like freeing me from that, healing me from dramatic anxiety and panic attacks and trauma from that. But also, I saw God breathe life into dead bones, like literally redeem a marriage that I didn't think could be redeemed. I had even gone to the attorney's office and was signing the divorce papers, but God redeemed it. So I've seen God work personally in my life where he has breathed life into dead bones in so many ways. But also, I've been very, very privileged in my life as an ordained minister and as a trauma and transformation specialist, the work that I do now. I've seen God work in and through lives of many women. I've also seen God, I was a pastoral counselor on a death row case. I saw him save a man who is now on death row and who is now actually spending his last days preaching on death row. I mean, I've seen God do so much. We serve a God who is limitless.
Amen. Amen. It sounds like it's redemption. Seen it and you've experienced it personally. There's that song, I've been redeemed, I've been set free. There's just a sweetness when Jesus redeems a life, and he can do it, can he?
Yeah, he can. And you said that song, redeemed.
Yeah.
I actually have redeemed tattooed on my wrist.
Maybe I need to get one of those. I like that.
It is literally a reminder.
Yes, and I love the verse that says, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, and he came for us. He demonstrated his love for us by sending Jesus. And so that's a sweet testimony from him. And I love watching it happen. God can renovate and restore like nobody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you share, because I knew you've been to the depths, and then God's brought you out back into the light.
Absolutely. Boy, has he.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this. What are you excited about upcoming? What are you looking forward to? What's ahead for you this year?
One of the things that I look forward to with expectation every single day is for God to move somehow in my life.
Yeah.
When I get up every morning, one of the things that I was able to do many years ago, when I was in full-time ministry, was the ability to study and be mentored by a Messianic rabbi, which was such a gift from God for me. So 3 years I was mentored by him and his wife. They were from the Rock of Israel. And so I got to study Hebraically and to study how God moves from the Hebraic standpoint. So one of the things that I adopted into my life was some of the prayers Hebraically first thing in the morning. So when I get up every morning, my thing is to thank God, the God of the universe, number one, for waking me up.
Yeah.
Number two, because he opened my eyes with purpose, breathed life back into my lungs. And there was something that I could expect for today, right? So for me, it's not about just the year ahead, it's the day for me. So that's always an anticipation, but it's also salvation for family, salvation for those that I serve. I'm looking for salvation every single day, redemption every single day.
I love that. The expectation that God's going to do something. Yeah.
Every day.
Our pastor that led this ministry was Pastor Adrian Rogers, and he actually was my pastor growing up. And he was the lover of finding. He began the ministry. He's in heaven. But I like to quote him. I have a bunch of his quotes that are just in my brain. My fact, when it goes something like this, I'll mess it up. You know how we do. But it's basically, if you woke up this morning and you're still breathing, God still has a plan for your life.
Absolutely.
And he taught so much on you need to expect there's purpose. If you're still here, there's still purpose. And that's a good word for somebody that's watching. God's not done. If he's left you on this planet, there still is purpose. And there's still things he wants to do in, through, and with your life. So that's a good word. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And every single day I see him work. I see him work in and through the podcast that I do every single day. I see him work through the women that I coach every single day. I see him work in my life, my family's life. It's just an everyday thing for me. And so I'm looking with expectation for that this year. I'm looking for the podcast. We're in 78 countries right now, which is just mind-boggling.
Crazy, isn't it?
We just launched this thing, in November, and it's just crazy. And so, I've got an upcoming fall retreat that we're working on for women. And so I'm expecting so much to be done this year and to see God move and the revival in the hearts of his people. That's a huge one.
Sweet. Yeah, I love that. Living with hope that God has something on the move. I got to spend last weekend with a group of girls that are seniors in high school, and they were the most fired up about Jesus group of people. And they're all like 17 and 18, silly little girls that were giggling 1 minute. But when we started talking about Jesus, we spent an entire Saturday around a table talking about the Lord and about prayer and about studying the Bible. These girls were getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning on the retreat. I mean, I was convicted. I was like, wow. I mean, they're serious. And it gives me hope, Lisa, because God's working in the hearts of kids and teenagers and college students. And so I love that I hear you saying we need to expect God to keep working and doing amazing things and not lose heart and not lose hope. And I love that you get up every day like, what are we going to do today, God?
And that is what it is. I have a chair in my office. It was my mother's chair, so it's very near and dear to my heart. But I love sitting in that chair because it sits across from my desk. Yeah. And so I like sitting over there and then looking at my desk and going, okay, God, what is on your agenda today? Because we get so tied up in our own schedules, our own agenda. But what if we literally said, well, God, what is your agenda today?
Yeah.
Because if we're always in the center of his will and we're always on his agenda, the things that are most important will get taken care of.
Have you heard of Henry Black? He wrote Experiencing God for our church years ago. And he said he gets up every day. I love this. He said, I don't make a huge long list like I used to. He said, I'll get up and say, God, what do we need to do today? Where do I need to go? Who do I need to call? What do you want to do in my life today and with me today? And I love that. And I pray that many days. I'm like, Lord, I don't want to waste this day. I mean, I could accomplish a lot and actually, none of it be what you wanted for today. So I love
Well,
that.
that helped. Yeah, that helped me because I was a workaholic.
Yeah.
Severe workaholic.
Yeah.
And that's where, when God started drawing me back, he
Yes.
was like, you're working off of your own agenda, child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop striving.
That's good. Yes.
You know, yeah.
I'll get some of those prayers, or that prayer that you pray in the morning. I'd love to have that. And we may share that so that people can, because that seems like a great way to pray. I love that. Ooh,
Yeah.
good stuff. You got a lot of good stuff today. Let me ask you this. What has God been teaching you? What else are you learning personally? Is there something just lately you've been thinking, oh, this has been so good, I want to pass it on to somebody else. Someone else is going to be encouraged by what God's teaching me.
Yeah. Well, for the last few years, ever since we were locked down with COVID, there's been a lot of panic, anxiety. There's been a lot of stress. There's been a lot of brokenness.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that. I get an influx with women all day, every day I get messages. So one of the things that I've really realized, and God has been speaking to my heart about, is that we don't need to be so worried about the brokenness.
Yeah.
That broken is actually beautiful. Mm-hmm. That broken is where he does his greatest work. Broken is necessary for transformation. And for some of us, it may be that we are broken and then we come out of it transformed, that we're glued together, so to speak. And, we kind of still resemble the same person that we used to be. But for some of us, that we more relate to, the brokenness has gone beyond that into a shattering, almost to where the glass is just unrecognizable. There's nothing but shards everywhere of our life. But what is so beautiful about that is that's when God sweeps in with his hands and he takes all of the shards. He doesn't miss a piece of it. He takes all of the shards and he starts interweaving them back together into now what is a tapestry. It's not the glass anymore, but it's a whole brand new creation, something that's more fortified, more bold, more courageous, more beautiful than ever before. And some of us, through the brokenness, have become so shattered that we don't believe that we can be put back together again and we can find the hope to have that extraordinary life. That's where God comes in. And we need to allow him to take the brokenness and to make the tapestry called our life and to make it into something that he desires to make it into, because it's going to be far more than you could ever dream or imagine.
Will accomplish what concerns me, and he is the one that does the accomplishing and the working and the mending and restoring. Sweet. That makes me think my mother and my grandmother made quilts, and she would take men's shirts and cut them in little squares. And I still have them. They're falling apart, but they've lasted a lot of years. So they would take pieces and sew them into these gorgeous quilts. And I think that's what you're saying. God, we just let him do the work. And he can take all kinds of pieces and all kinds of hurts. Mm-hmm. And even the ones people don't know about. I think people can look in the eye and know we've been through something, and that we're talking from a place where they are. And that we love it. And so if you're listening, I want to encourage you. You may feel like you're like the shadow. God is never beyond fixing any shadow. And that's a good word. Thank you. He is wonderfully able to put the tapestry back together. Yeah, that's good. Let me ask you this. How can people get in touch with you? If somebody says, I'd like to know more about your ministry, is there a place you especially like to connect? We'll put all this below in the comments, but is there somewhere you say, hey, I really like to talk to women on this place, on this particular mode?
The best way to get in contact with me is through my website that is associated with my podcast, because all of the links are within that. And that one is www.beautybeyondbetrayal.org. And again, it links my email, it links every which way but loose that you can get in contact with me. That is the best way to find me.
We'll put that all below because I want y'all to go over and meet her. Tell her you saw our conversation and you want to get to know her. She's my friend. And it may be that you've lived through a betrayal, you've been the betrayer, or you'll really understand, or you resonate with Lisa. You like her and you say, I want to follow her ministry. Go do it. That's what we're here for. I'm trying to introduce you to some people that I really feel like will encourage you and minister to you. So I'll put all the information below. Make sure you have links so y'all can get to her. All right, one last question. I always like to finish with this one. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Just something that's burning in your heart and you say, I got one more thing I got to say.
I do, actually. I prayed before we got on today, and I just really felt that God had a message for someone. You know, when I was in full-time ministry, there was a time where I was at a gas station and I saw this very dirty penny at my foot. And I remember looking at it and I heard God say, pick it up. And I was like, God, that's really nasty. I really don't want to touch that. But he said, no, I need you to pick that up, pick it up. And while I was picking it up, he told me, he said, don't ever forget it's all about the one. You're the one to go to the one that's going to introduce him to the one. So the one that wants to reach you today, I prayed so hard. What is something that he wanted you to hear today? And this is what he gave me. You know, as women, we have a tendency to do one of two things in life. The first is we have a tendency to downplay ourselves. We think less of who we are. Or on the flip side of that, we have a tendency to strive to elevate ourselves, to gain that success the world's way. But as women of God, we get to change our perspective and the way we live our lives. We don't have to downplay who we are, and we definitely don't have to elevate ourselves to receive acceptance. We are accepted. We are loved, valued, honored, and treasured for who he made us to be. In the eyes of many, you may seem just ordinary. Through your own eyes, you may seem just ordinary, but in the hands of an extraordinary God, you break the mold of ordinary and become his extraordinary masterpiece. That is who you really are. So live authentically and be free to be real and to be you.
Amen. That's a great word. Oh, girl, way to finish.
I am.
Awesome. That was a good word, a sweet word. Thank you. You've been an encouragement and you've inspired us today. And so thank you for just sharing a little bit of your story and giving us a little hope and a little perspective. And I love the whole idea of just knowing that we're God's masterpiece and we're his original creation. I was reading Ephesians 2:10 the other day. It said before that he made the world, he picked us, he chose us, and he knew what we were going to be doing. And so I love that God loves us like he does. And so thank you. This has been super sweet, super encouraging. And I believe people are going to watch and listen and say, oh, I was blessed by this. So I know I have been. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Being here today. Yes. And listen, y'all let us know questions, prayer requests, get to know Lisa, go over and see her, talk to her, tell her where you found her. And we will continue to do this and pray that as you watch these videos, you'll be encouraged, that you'll feel like you're not alone. You're not doing this Christian life by yourself. And our prayer is that you'll be able to face the future without fear. So we will see you again soon. Thanks again, Lisa. It's been a